Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for being here. Before I jump into it, raise your hand if you are a TD customer. A lot of hands. So thank you for your business. As America's most convenient bank, we want to make sure we're serving you well. And that's not a commercial spot. Also, would like to recognize two of my colleagues who are with me here tonight. So Jill Riley and Amber Lutz. They're intimately involved in everything that we are doing on measurement. We appreciate everything you're doing, and thank you for being here. I wanted them to be here for two reasons. One, I wanted them to network with everyone here this evening, and also I wanted them to keep me honest, because I like telling stories, and therefore I want to make sure that they're mostly factually correct. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. On my first slide. So metrics that matter. I asked Jenny, I said, Jenny, exactly what do you want me to speak about? She goes, well, talk about your journey as far as how you see measurement. Talk about the things that really matter to you, and talk about the things you've learned. What worked, what didn't, and how you see the future of measurement as far as the things you want to do for TD Bank. So when I thought about metrics that matter, this is really what came to mind. So metrics that matter to me, Brooks Adams Pinson, my second grandchild, born last week, 9 pounds, 6 ounces. That's a metric to me that really, really matters a lot. So there he is. So if you think about TD Bank, America's most convenient bank, we're a bit of a brand within a brand. So we are a bank, but we really create these awesome experiences that people really, really enjoy. Our stores are open 10 minutes longer than our posted hours. We're open every day of the year with the exception of 3. And if it's raining and you come into one of our stores, we will walk you to your car with an umbrella. If you have a dog and your dog is hungry and you want to come into one of our stores and you're not even a customer, we will give your dog biscuits and we will feed him water. So that's how we try to connect and just try to do things that are a little bit different. So right now we're launching another advertising campaign called Bank Human. I want to give you a little bit of taste of how you should think about TD as a different kind of bank.
I've heard TD Bank is the bank for humans. It has things humans really seem to enjoy, like longer hours, checking with a $100 minimum daily balance, and, you can even bring your dog in. But why would you do that?
I see your Karate Kid also has no pockets. You worried you lose debit card?
Debit card? Ha! Don't be foolish. I have TD Bank. They replace card on the spot.
Ah, TD Bank. Very good.
Yes, good. Now prepare for hissing chicken.
Some homes suddenly became available in our neighborhood. My wife wants a bi-level. I would like a ranch style. Either way, we're going to get a great low mortgage rate from TD Bank. 3 flights of stairs. I'm gonna be dead.
So again, a different kind of bank. What's interesting about TD was 10 years ago, we did not have one asset, $1 of loan in the United States. But today we have 8 million customers, 250 billion assets, deposits of about 206 billion, tons of loans, 25,000 employees in the US, and locations 1,300. In a 10-year span during one of the most difficult periods of time for the banking industry and the financial services industry. So when I came to the company, I realized that I really wanted to make sure that we had a measurement program that really, really could make a difference. I'm a bit of a late bloomer. When it came to measurement, it wasn't really something I was really focused on until the second half of my career. And when I was with AIG, Chris Winans, who's right there in the second row, who's managing partner here with H&K, we were so busy putting out fires during the financial crisis, we were not using measurement to determine how well we were doing. We were just hoping to live to another day. Chris, would you agree? But it was this moment that really made me think about measurement as kind of a love-hate relationship. So I'm very passionate about it, but it's a little bit like fly fishing. It's the art and it's the science and it's the journey of trying to perfect something that looks really, really beautiful, but really, really hard to do. Same true with my golf game. So never can golf like this, but when you have a great drive, you're like, that was absolutely awesome. What did I learn from it? And how can I repeat that? So to me, it's that endless journey of trying to seek perfection. And it's the same way that we kind of look at, or I look at as measurement, as far as what can you learn, how can you get better, and how can you make sure you're really partnering with the right people to make sure you're doing the very, very best thing you can do for your company and you can do for your brand. So it was this quote less than 10 years ago when I was with AIG Retirement Services running corporate communications, and Chris knows this gentleman very well. He was my boss. He was the CEO of the company. And I remember one day we sat down for one of our one-on-ones, And I was walking him through some of the things that we had done recently from a PR perspective. He goes, I think this stuff is great, but John, your team does amazing work. But what does it mean for our business? So when I left Jay's office, I said, that was kind of a hollow compliment, meaning he likes what we do, but I wasn't in a position where I could actually tell him what it was doing for the business as far as how we were driving awareness and how we were driving consideration, and ultimately how we were driving sales. So that really kind of influenced my experience with metrics. All this was happening when we were going through what was happening in our own businesses, right? So the world of traditional media was changing rapidly. Social media was really impacting as far as how we interact with others, new ways of communicating, new ways of telling our stories. I remember when I was talking to the managing editor of the Bits blog for the New York Times, I said, how best to pitch you because you're so hard to get? He said, John, 130 characters or less. That was 2009. It was the same year when I was with eBay Inc. that we live tweeted our quarterly earnings. The next day, it was a Wall Street Journal major story. So the world was changing. I was trying to catch up to it. Really had very, very little knowledge of measurement, except for the fact I managed the function when I was with eBay Inc. And the first thing I did was to look at how we measured. We had 32 agencies around the globe handling monitoring and measurement for us, all with different metrics, different approaches, different ways of defining success. It was absolutely maddening. So we went into a process of an RFP, a global RFP, and my goal was to really find one firm that could do it all. Couldn't find one firm because there are a lot of great partners out there. But we found Cision and we found Gorkana, and we brought them together to really kind of handle how we were going to handle measurement from a global perspective, but we were going to build it up from the ground up, and that's what we did in great partnership. And it's really been a great story for me from the standpoint of really learning how to do it right, but then how to take that experience and bring it forward as far as what we're doing at TD Bank. So at TD, we focus on metrics that drive insights and influence strategy. So what does that really mean? When you're working with business partners who have very, very little time, you really got to make sure when you're interacting with them, you're really talking about the things that matter most. And if we have a metric that will not drive an insight and it will not influence how we think about strategy, we will not use that metric. So when we went through a very similar RFP process in the last really 9 months, 12 months, it was really important that we kind of brought this forward. It was really important that we articulated that to everyone we were talking to. And we're here today because Cision and Gorkana were chosen to be our partners going forward. So to me, it was really kind of taking the experiences we had and bringing it forward as far as being able to drive engagement and being able to measure how well we were doing and everything that we were trying to accomplish from both a PR perspective as well as a social media perspective. So what I'd like to do is kind of just go through some of the insights I'd like to share with you as far as this journey of measurement, what I have learned and how we're applying it at TD. First insight I would say is develop a holistic and measurable dashboard aligned to achieving business objectives. The human nature is to complicate things. Do what you can to keep it as simple as possible. Deliver macro and micro metrics on a consistent basis. So what does that mean? Try to aggregate the cumulative impact that we have on the business so we can help influence how we should be thinking about investing in the future. And don't be tempted by what I call voodoo metrics. What I mean by that is I have tried to find the perfect index over the last 10 or 12 years, and it's hard to find an index that you can explain to business partners that makes it sound like you're really driving great results for the business from a public relations standpoint. And I remember when we were going through this process before we started the RFP at eBay, it was a 45-minute discussion. We were having our PR agency to explain to me how to explain our index to business partners. And I said, we're in trouble. Because if it takes that long for you to explain it to me so I can explain it to somebody else, I don't think they're going to buy it. They're going to see it as black box, and therefore let's not look at that. So part of the reason we really focused on metrics was really to make sure we have the right metrics as far as how we want to drive the business. And then remember, you can't evaluate what you can't measure. The idea here is you got to have a goal. If you don't have a goal, you can't measure. So it really helps to drive far more discipline as far as the things you're trying to do to really show the business that you're driving performance in a way that they can find very, very helpful to what they're trying to do to achieve their goals. The second insight is focus on KPIs that matter. So we've all talked about that from the panel standpoint. Impressions, are they the new column inches? How much do they really matter? As we think about that, we have divorced ourselves from impressions as best we can. It's kind of hard to wean yourself off that, but we really haven't found it to be metric that really matters to us and really allows us to articulate to business partners, again, how we're really driving the business. Aligned scorecards, I love affected impressions, so Jenny has schooled me well, so has Megan, on affected impressions. That's your message against your target audience through the channels that matter most to you. And why that is a powerful metric is because you can start quantifying and qualifying how effective PR is as a driver against some of the more traditional marketing levers like direct mail, like digital, like email as well. And we've been able to correlate that specifically in campaigns where we can say this is what that affected impression cost and why it's important to business partners because they realize it's that message you're trying to cut through. And this is what it costs when we went against your target audience and began to drive awareness towards consideration. The next one is integrate mainstream digital strategy with social strategy, so create a virtuous cycle of engagement. So what the heck does that mean? It means try to find that perfect harmony between social and traditional. And we started on this venture with Gorkana when I was with eBay, and it was really trying to find the best mix, and how could one help tease the other? And what's a good way to show that, and how can you really kind of put metrics against that so you can decide how you want to think about campaigns going forward? So it's really leveraging the strength of traditional and social, and then tie thought leadership and influencer engagement on top of that. So knowing the things that are important to your organization, that provides that wrapping, that halo around the brand towards everything you're trying to do, whether it's product, whether it's line of business, or whether it's campaign specific, so you can drive additional engagement and additional conversation. So as a case study that I want to show you real quick, it's how we used to define synergy at eBay. Simply, 1 + 1 = 3. It's that extra, right? What can we do that really, really drives engagement far better than if we did it with traditional media or whether we did it with social alone? What's that virtuous cycle? We call it the arc of the story, and this is what it looks like. So back in 2012, we decided that we wanted to change the eBay logo. Now, it's a very whimsical logo for those who shop on eBay, whether you're buying or selling. And we knew that people have an emotional connection to this brand, and they have an emotional connection to the logo. So we knew anything that we do was going to receive a lot of scrutiny. And we wanted to make sure that we were driving a narrative that we could manage, that was critical to the process. And what we decided to do, which is the first time we ever did this, we said we're going to make a global announcement, and we're not going to issue a press release. We're going to do it purely through social, and we're going to let social tease traditional, and we're going to drive a traditional media cycle the traditional way, but we're going to drive conversation and engagement on the topic of what we did and why we did it. And we're going to do it against not 5 messages, not 3 messages, not 2 messages, 1 message. That we are changing the future of shopping. That's all we wanted people to realize, only because eBay was going from that whimsical site where you would buy Beanie Babies 10 years before to a very mature, sophisticated online and offline retailer where we were partnering with some of the greatest retail brands in the business today. So we felt we just needed to be a little bit more mature, a little bit more disciplined, a little more buttoned up. So this is what our scorecard looked like. Relevant impressions, again, remember, it's just that one message. The future of retail. And what we did was, you can see here in the dark green, we actually started with social media. We created a destination where we disseminated news, but we drove conversation to our site. So we could not just monitor that conversation, but we could influence that conversation. And we could bring influencers into that conversation, so anytime something was trending negative, we could shift the conversation. From that, we generated 1.4 billion relevant impressions over about a 1-week period. So Jenny and the team, Megan, worked on this. And this is one of those epiphany moments I had when it came to the virtuous cycle or the arc of the story. If you look at the traditional media cycle, the lighter green, what is it, 1 day? One day you get the second day bounce, you hope for that. But what we ended up doing was continue the media cycle over a period of a week by driving additional social engagement, which also helped us drive additional traditional. So all of a sudden we got far more impressions, relevant impressions, because I don't really care about general impressions, far more relevant impressions than we thought. And we ended up getting much more from social than we did from traditional. So that really changed how we thought about campaigns going forward, because it was that interaction of the both that really, really made the difference. So at TD, what are we doing? To be honest with you, we're doing a lot of the things that I was doing the 5 years before that we're bringing here. What we're doing with Gorkana and Cision now is we're refining it even further. So we're really kind of taking three approaches. We actually turned the switch on, I think, November 1st. So this is still a work in progress, but I'm going to show you exactly what it is that we're doing and how we're going about doing it. Again, it's based on what I believe is best practice that works pretty effectively for business. So the first is we're developing a quarterly scorecard. Also developing a line of business and product scorecards, and then campaign-specific scorecards. So it's really kind of like a funnel. Big on the top, narrow on the bottom. The quarterly performance scorecards is really to help business leaders understand what the total impact is to the business on a quarter-by-quarter basis. And then we can start showing, when we have more data, how one quarter does against another quarter. Why is that important? We can start understanding seasonality. Where do we want to play? When do we don't want to play? What are the big issues that people are thinking about in our business that we want to have a conversation about? So the more data that we get, the more it's going to influence our strategy. And as we like to say in our team, the more we know, the luckier we get. So that data is important to us. We can start looking at it from a seasonal basis, quarter by quarter, over and over. And then finally, as I mentioned, the campaign-specific scorecards will show that as well. So I'm going to show you, but before doing so, that's what it looked like 15 years ago. So for all of us who have been in the business, where we define success by how thick the Bacon's news clipping envelope was that we got once a month. You remember that? It had a little tag on it. And then every article, they kind of highlighted your company's name, so in case you were kind of lazy and you didn't want to read it, you could actually see the highlight. So for those of us who've been around for 20 years, we remember that. That's how it was. In fact, I think maybe 15 years ago. So a lot has happened, certainly in the last 10 years, and certainly in the last 3 years, and probably more change in measurement, I'm thinking the last 3 years than perhaps the last 10 or so. So it's accelerating. So how do we stay on top of that? So I want to show you exactly what we did. This is where we were today about a year ago. Then, this is how we measured and how we did measurement on everything we were doing from a PR standpoint. Traditional media only, no social extensions. So when I came to TD, I said to Jill, who was running measurement, how do we do it? She said, John, I have a spreadsheet. I have a number 2 pencil. And every month I take the Google Alerts feed and I calculate out tone, reach, and volume. I said, you're kidding me. She goes, no, that's how we do it here at TD Bank. I said, that's not how we're going to do it at TD Bank. I said, because there's a new way of doing it that's going to help you not spend 250 hours a year, correct? Manually inputting something that I don't see until a month after the event that has an index of little value to the business. It was a quality scorecard based on subjective index factors. So we talked about black box index. If you have one that works, please share it with me because I'm really struggling to be able to make that work effectively. Reactive, no real-time capability. We're in the middle of a crisis, and Chris, you and I knew about crisis. I couldn't tell you how well we were doing except by feel. That's a dangerous place to be. And then lastly, limited alignment with business goals. Try to explain a spreadsheet with a number 2 pencil, manually input it 30 days to your CEO. We didn't do it because it wasn't the right thing to do. Here's where we are today. We're here because of our partnership with Cision and Gorkana. We went, really in 9 months, after doing a RFP where we included all the major, quote, experts. Here's where we are today. Integration of mainstream and social channels and outlets. Real-time issues management capability. Man, I love that. I like to know how we're doing in the moment on any issue because when you're in banking, you're dealing with issues a lot, and you're dealing with them every day, and you're dealing with them 7 days a week. Web analytics plugins, including a tie-in to our brand tracker, which we're going to be announcing in November, which allows us to see how what we're doing from a PR standpoint is actually influencing the key attributes in our brand tracker. Vastly improved competitive analysis. We believe we punch above our weight when it comes to PR. We believe that, but I can't prove that. We're going to be able to prove that pretty soon in the next 30 days. And then lastly, metrics aligned to business partner goals. We can show business partners, I don't care if they're retail, they're commercial, or they're corporate. We can show them exactly what the spend is doing, how it's influencing how people think about TD Bank against our competition, against in region as well. And we can actually put a numeric to it as far as what that cost is versus other levers. That's going to generate some really, really exciting conversations. So I'm going to go through it really, really quick because I'm sharing this with you because I'd be more than happy to share this even further in the conversation. So that's our corporate dashboard. That's what we're going to be turning on November 1st. So we have all the metrics we just talked about, specific to traditional. But on the right-hand side, we have the social as well. And then we have it aggregated. So it's sentiment, it's prominence, it's share of voice. Arturo talked about that as well. Message delivery, That to me is more important than anything else. What's our narrative? What's our story? What's our message platform? And what are we choosing that we're driving against that outlet, against what we're trying to do for the business? And then what's our cut-through percentage of that message to that target audience? Our goal is always to be at 75% on message number 1 or higher. Message number 2, about 60%. Message number 3, about 55%. But you can see as you add more messages and you make it more complicated, it's really hard to define your success. Corporate scorecard, next level down, probably my favorite slide, because I'm seeing social, and I'm seeing traditional, and I'm seeing it mixed. So all of a sudden, we're starting to see, how is social influencing traditional? How is traditional influencing social? And what can we do to push it a little bit further? And do that over time. Take that 24-hour media cycle and extend it into a week, 10 days, 2 weeks plus. I said that last slide was my favorite. This is probably my favorite. So what I love is the fact, right? How are we doing on sharing? So those stories that are being shared, I am myopically focused on those because that tells me that's what people are most interested in. And if we didn't hit it hard and we could hit it harder, let's do it next time. Or can we do it real time in flight? Let's go for it now. We certainly have the relationships with the media that matter. As we build our influencer program and our thought leadership platform, we can influence it even further. So then we go straight from that into key themes, impacts, measures. Again, it's another layer down. That's kind of that quarterly corporate scorecard. We'll look at this every quarter. What I like about this is I love going through the analytics and the data to find the real insights. But I also looked at Jenny and Megan and team to say, what insights am I missing that you guys can tell us that will help influence how we think about the future? And then we say money in here. So we go specific to line of business and product. Because the heads of business will say, hey, I love the corporate scorecard, that's awesome, but what are you doing for me today? So we have a very specific scorecard, whether you own a product or whether you actually own a line of products within a business. Money in, so it's savings accounts, checking accounts. We'll tell you exactly, again, same metrics. So we're not applying new metrics. We're taking what we had in the quarterly scorecard and we're driving it deeper within the business. Level 2, going deeper, share a voice. Article dominance. Sounds like a funny metric, right? No, but it's not. I want to own the story. I don't want to just play in the story. I want to own the story. So therefore, let's prioritize against our time against those stories we can own. If we're taking kind of a look at an industry story, we can be part of that, that's fine. But I want to own the story. I want to keep punching above our weight. And then also key insights, message delivery. How are we doing on our messages? Again, the discipline. Go from 3, go to 2, go to 1. The smaller the batch, the better you can really define your success. Bring change. This is a campaign. So we do a lot of marketing campaigns. And what we love to do about marketing campaigns, because the marketing department will say, that's awesome. Can you guys get great press for us? And I'm always like, it's a marketing campaign. It's not news. But let's go ahead and wrap news around it. So what can we do that can really help take that marketing campaign and give it insight that's of value to a major reporter or a major outlet? And we've done that several times this year. Here's the bummer of what we've done. I can't tell you how well we did as far as how we drove the business then, because that was the then, but now it's the now. As far as now, we're going to be able to do that. Although I half want to go ahead and take one of our recent campaigns that was successful and retrofit our data as far as our coverage into a scorecard. But it sounds a little complicated and a little underhanded, so we're not going to do that. Bring change again, going back into spokesperson effectiveness. How many times we talk to an executive who says, I was awesome in that interview? And we're like, you know what? You sounded great, but you didn't hit one of our damn messages. It's happened to all of us, right? I mean, it's happened to me many times over. Now we're going to be able to say, we did pretty good on our messaging, but you know what? You weren't as strong as you could have been. And here's what we're going to do. So all of a sudden, we can start educating and training better, because we're going to say, when you come into the room, hit the message. The interview's not over until you do it. But now we can quantify just how well they did by name. And we can share this with those throughout the organization. Verticals are important to us. You know, again, I want to know, was it a feature, was it a brief, was it a mention? So lastly, closing slide, what the future holds. Here's what I've learned in my years in dabbling with measurement, because it is something I do have great passion for. Tighter integration with marketing. We've done a lot of that this year. It's really, really helped as far as really looking at just how we can work together, particularly because we own social channels, they own social channels, which work together. So to the customer, it's just one channel, one voice. Evolving the virtuous cycle model, that's going to continue. So therefore, what can we do to help further refine it? I think we can further refine it through our metrics and how we think about measurement. better leveraging of thought leadership. We all have passion. Our businesses have passion for the things that matter most to us. That also matter the most of our customers. What's that higher level narrative that we can wrap around all the things that we're doing for the business on a day in, day out basis? And then keeping a keen eye on the prize. So what does that mean? Column inches a few years ago. Bacon's clippings 5 years before that. What's the next 5 years hold? And how should we think about measurement, not just today, but where is it going in the next 3 to 5 years? And that's where we are, TD Bank, America's most convenient bank as of today. So thank you.